Hey YNR fans! Waving hand, welcome to YNR Trends, your go-to spot for the juiciest Young and the Restless updates, shocking spoilers, and all the drama you can't stop talking about. From surprise returns to scandalous twists, we break it all down for you, every day. So grab your coffee, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive right into Genoa City's hottest gossip. According to previews for The Young and the Restless, Phyllis Summers may pretend to be in a romantic relationship with Kane Ashby and promise to help her new boss incite jealousy in Lily Winters. Kane has often tried to get more intimate with Lily and persuade her that they are still meant to be together. Kane attempts again to convince Lily that they are destined to be together, but she constantly refuses. Kane will again beg for another chance in YNR's August 18th episode because he believes that neither of them has ever experienced love like this. Kane will insist that Lily unlock the door for him or at least open it a crack because he thinks it's something exceptional. Kane will become irritated if Lily rejects his request for a new romantic beginning. Kane may eventually vent to Phyllis, who has become his new right-hand lady, as a result of this. When it comes to making Kane happy, Phyllis is prepared and willing to go to any lengths. Pretending to combine business and pleasure is one way they might do that. Phyllis would prefer that Kane concentrate solely on their business objectives, but she might realize it's not feasible given his intense obsession with Lily. Perhaps by trying a different strategy, Phyllis may offer to help Kane make some progress. Since Phyllis is aware of the power of jealousy, she may believe that Kane may take advantage of it. Until Carter erased Damien Kane from the map, Kane was undoubtedly envious of Lily's relationship with him in Italy. If Phyllis and Kane act as though they are in a romantic relationship, Lily may now have to cope with some jealousy. Naturally, things could get complicated if Kane and Phyllis start to feel something for one another. Kane might develop into Phyllis's real love interest after spoilers for The Young and the Restless earlier suggested that she would win both love and business. In any event, the show may capitalize on the flirtatious conversations that Kane and Phyllis have already had. Keep checking back for updates on any unexpected romantic developments as the trouble may begin with Kane using Phyllis to incite Lily's jealousy and escalate from there. As she smoothed down the fiery strands of her hair, the ones that always gave her away when she was nervous, Phyllis gazed at her image in the mirror. Schemes, betrayals, and unfulfilled promises were all part of her past, but tonight's plans seemed different. This was a performance, a risky dance in which she was both the actor and the one who could lose everything if the curtain fell too soon. It wasn't just a plan she had devised to defend herself. She laughed at the ridiculousness of the idea of pretending to be in love with Kane Ashby, but the directives had come straight from her employer, a powerful man in Genoa City who thought that the only way to advance the chessboard was to rattle Lily's cage. Since Lily Winters wasn't exactly her favorite target, Phyllis initially rolled her eyes, but as she gave it more thinking, she saw how powerful it could be. Everyone knew that Kane still nursed a flame for Lily, and Phyllis entering his sphere of influence, even if only for show, might be a direct blow to Lily's dignity. And if it forced Lily back into Kane's life, then perhaps everyone, aside from Lily, of course, got what they desired. Kane was already sitting at the bar when Phyllis got to society that evening, drinking a scotch that he pretended was informal but was obviously his method of gathering strength. Desperation had a way of rewriting a man's morality, but he wasn't the kind of man who enjoyed publicly plotting, at least not anymore. Her perfume wafted between them like a warning as she slipped into the vacant seat next to him. She brushed her palm across the bar and said, "You look nervous." "Kane, it's just me." His gaze shifted to her with a mixture of hesitation and annoyance before softening with something almost tender. "Don't tell me you've forgotten how to charm a woman." "Phyllis, I haven't forgotten. I simply no longer see the purpose of playing games. Lily has moved on." Phyllis smiled knowingly and leaned closer, her lips almost touching his ear, saying, "She doesn't care what I do. She will notice when you're with me for precisely that reason. I promise you, Kane, that envy is the oldest technique in the book, and it always works." Over the course of the following days, the plan came to pass like a meticulously planned routine. Through late-night drinks at the athletic club, lunches at society, and whispered chats that appeared too personal to be casual, Phyllis made sure they were always spotted together in public. Because Genoa City was so little, rumors spread more quickly than light, and before long, Lily could hear them. One afternoon at Crimson Lights, Phyllis noticed her across the room, her brows narrowing as she saw Kane across the table holding Phyllis's hand. Phyllis acted as though she was unaware of Lily's presence, but the excitement of it made every nerve in her body tingle. Even though her thoughts was already racing ahead, she forced Kane to comply by tightening her grip on his hand and grinning pleasantly at something he said. Lily's face had wavered slightly, showing pain, envy, and possibly even rage. Just what her boss desired. But it was harder than Phyllis thought to play pretend with Kane. When the performance ended at night, she couldn't help but think about the sorrow in his eyes and the way his voice softened every time Lily's name was mentioned. For him, it was about survival and clinging to the hope that one day Lily would see the man he still aspired to be, not just about strategy. It pulled at Phyllis, something she detested. She repeatedly reminded herself that this was just business. Nevertheless, she opened her hotel room door to Kane when he unexpectedly arrived one evening with takeout and a clumsy smile. Before he eventually broke, they ate in quiet for a while, the weight of everything unsaid weighing on them. "Phyllis, do you ever grow weary of acting?" His eyes were fixed on hers as he asked softly. She forced a laugh that even she could not hear as she swallowed. "Kane, that's my area of expertise. My survival is via pretending." It got messier the more they immersed themselves in the charade. Lily was responding, not merely observing. When Kane's name was mentioned in conversation, she would retort sharply, losing her cool with people who knew her the best. Phyllis recognized the strategy was working too well when she noticed how Lily's walls shook when she believed no one was watching. Lily was being broken by her jealousy, which was more than just making her notice Kane once more. And guilt began to seep into the part of Phyllis that still remembered what it was like to be shattered by love. She had only intended to encourage Lily, never to ruin her. However, guilt was a hazardous thing since it made it difficult to distinguish between friends and foes, between truth and falsehood, to the point where Phyllis was unsure of her allegiance. In contrast, Kane was evolving. He became increasingly involved in the role they were playing, despite his initial reluctance. He pressed his lips to her cheek when no one was looking, held her hand longer than he should have, and gave her a gaze that made her feel afraid because it seemed real. Phyllis was in his arms, her body crushed against his as they danced one evening after they had been glued to each other's sides the entire time at a charity dinner. For a moment, she forgot it was all a deception as the world vanished and the music slowed. The pain in his voice as he muttered, "Thank you for making me feel alive again," almost tore her apart. Kane's palm was at the small of her back, his breath warm against her temple. Phyllis drew back, a sneer masking her feelings. "Kane, don't thank me. It's just business. Do you recall?" Her comments, however, seemed hollow. She had somehow stepped over the border from pretend to real, and the truth was eating away at her. She wasn't meant to give a damn about whether Lily felt hurt or if Kane smiled again. Nevertheless, she found herself standing in the midst of a storm that she had contributed to, questioning whether she had any control over its course. Her boss, who had initiated this scheme in the first place, was hanging over everything. He was more concerned with getting things done than with Kane's heart or Phyllis's conscience. He desired Lily to be exposed, sidetracked, and influenced in ways that would further his overall strategy. In order to keep him happy and protect herself, Phyllis had believed she could outmaneuver him and play along just enough. Now, though, she wasn't sure she could get out of the mess without losing something she didn't know was important. After a particularly violent argument with Lily at Chancellor Winter's one evening, Phyllis found herself pacing her suite while mentally reciting everything Lily had said. "Phyllis, you don't give a damn about him. Kane is being used because that's what you do. And after you're finished, you'll throw him away like the others." Phyllis detested the pain, not because she thought Lily was mistaken, but rather because she was afraid she was correct. For once, Phyllis didn't want to be the antagonist in someone else's tale, and Kane deserved better than to be a piece in someone else's game. She nearly told Kane everything when he knocked on her door later that night, looking tired but optimistic. Nearly. Instead, she moved to the side, opened the door for him, and said in a whisper, "Just stay tonight. No pretense, no games. Simply remain." Kane did, and Phyllis felt the barriers surrounding her heart change for the first time since this charade started. The truth was there, lingering in their quiet times together, in the way his hand fit so naturally in hers, even though she wasn't ready to say it aloud. What began as a worldwide performance was turning dangerously real, and Phyllis knew that the consequences would be disastrous if Lily, or worse, her boss, found out. She couldn't bring herself to care, though, as she laid next to Kane that night and listened to the steady pattern of his breathing. She wasn't acting for the first time in a long time. And she was more afraid of that than anything else. In soap operas and long-running television dramas, the intricacies of love relationships frequently act as a catalyst for character growth, narrative advancement, and viewer interest. The possible plotline in The Young and the Restless, where Phyllis Summers pretends to be in a romantic relationship with Kane Ashby in order to control emotions, more especially, to make Lily Winters envious at the request of a superior, is one such fascinating scenario. Characters' loyalty, dishonesty, and the moral limits they are prepared to go to in order to further their own or their careers are all called into question by this storytelling technique. Character motivations, the show's historical setting, and the wider ramifications for interpersonal interactions in the made-up city of Genoa City must all be considered while analyzing this subplot. It has long been known that Phyllis Summers is a complicated, morally dubious person whose acts frequently conflate self-preservation with overt manipulation. She has a long history of plots, betrayals, and alliances that were forged more for practical reasons than out of true love. It would be consistent with her known pattern of behavior, using relationships as tools rather than commitments, if she were to pretend to be in a romantic relationship with Kane Ashby. If it benefits her, especially if she thinks it will improve her standing with a strong boss, Phyllis is not above lying. The notion that she would consent to such a plan implies that she either stands to benefit significantly or views it as a chance to exert control over a circumstance in which she would otherwise feel helpless. However, despite his personal shortcomings, Kane Ashby has usually been presented as a more morally upright figure. His storyline has revolved around his relationship with Lily Winters, which is characterized by both profound emotional bonds and major betrayals. He would need strong reasons to engage in a fake romance with Phyllis, such as a vulnerable moment, a mistaken notion that provoking Lily's jealousy would revive their romance, or outside pressure from a superior. Alternatively, he can be an unintentional pawn in Phyllis's game because he is ignorant of her true objectives. In any case, his involvement would heighten the suspense, especially if the ruse is complicated by his sincere affections for Lily. The manipulation's intended target, Lily Winters, would respond according to her emotional state and past interactions with Kane. She can become envious, insecure, or even angry if she still feels something for him after seeing him with Phyllis. But Lily is also a resilient, self-reliant person who has endured many betrayals. She may be able to see through the charade, which could result in a confrontation that reveals the plan and its masterminds, depending on how the deception plays out. Depending on how she reacts, the strategy could either backfire and increase mistrust between the characters, or it could unintentionally bring her closer to Kane during a vulnerable emotional moment. Another level of mystery is added by the involvement of the unidentified boss in this situation. It is necessary to investigate the motivations behind this employer's desire to control Lily's emotions if they are a powerful individual, such as Jack Abbott, Victor Newman, or even a more recent power player. Have they got a personal grudge? Are they trying to undermine her for their own benefit? Or is this a component of a more complex, broader plan? The employer's participation implies that the fictitious romance is connected to corporate intrigue, a recurrent issue in The Young and the Restless, rather than just personal ties. When personal and professional disputes are combined, the stakes are raised and the consequences are more severe when the truth eventually surfaces. In the past, love triangles, misguided intentions, and emotional manipulation have been the mainstays of soap operas. The cliché of a phony relationship intended to arouse jealousy is well worn, but how effectively it is executed determines how effective it is. A nuanced portrayal of Phyllis and Kane's fictitious romance might build tension as viewers wait for Lily or another character to reveal the truth. On the other hand, if the deceit is clear from the beginning, the focus of the drama is on how long the characters can continue to lie before something goes wrong. Such tales revolve around the tension between performance and authenticity. Phyllis and Kane have to hide their actual emotions while selling their relationship effectively, which causes internal struggle at times. It is impossible to overlook the scheme's ethical ramifications. By consenting to trick Kane and control Lily, Phyllis strengthens her reputation as a cunning manipulator and may drive away allies. If willing, Kane's involvement undermines his moral character and casts doubt on his devotion to Lily. The methods erode the genuineness of his love, even if his motives are misguidedly noble, thinking that this will eventually bring them back together, for example. Questions concerning the employer's morals and leadership are raised by their desire to use personal relationships for nefarious ends. Since confidence is hard to regain in Genoa City once it is lost, these moral lapses have long-term effects. This plotline presents several opportunities for development from a narrative standpoint. If the phony relationship is successful in making Lily envious, it may result in a brief reconciliation between her and Kane, only to cause more problems when the lie is exposed. Alternatively, Lily may take revenge and turn the tables on Phyllis and the employer if she finds out too soon. Additionally, the potential for sincere affections to blossom between Phyllis and Kane could complicate the initial plan and introduce an element of uncertainty. Drama is heightened in soap operas, and a phony romance might develop into more serious disputes with other characters, business takeovers, or even illegal plots. This plot's psychological aspects are just as captivating. The fact that Phyllis is willing to commit such a lie illustrates how adaptive and survival-minded her nature is. She may defend her behavior by arguing that it is essential for her professional growth or personal safety, but it is impossible to overlook the psychological costs of upholding a facade. Kane may experience remorse if he is conflicted, particularly if he has feelings for Lily. Lily's resiliency and sense of self-worth would determine how she responded to the inevitable disclosure. Would she come out stronger, or would the betrayal make her more cynical about relationships? Examining the employer's intentions is also necessary. Are they motivated by retaliation, insecurity, or a mistaken sense of their own cunning? This storyline is consistent with the young and the restless heritage of high-stakes business and emotional warfare. Personal and professional lives are closely intertwined in Genoa City, and characters regularly take advantage of their connections. The effectiveness of the false romance trope, which has been used in a variety of ways in the past, hinges on novel developments and compelling character relationships. The backstories of Phyllis, Kane, and Lily are sufficient to make this scenario plausible, and the addition of a strong employer gives it a fresh perspective that keeps it from seeming like a rehashing of earlier stories. In the end, the intriguing narrative topic of whether Phyllis fabricates a romance with Kane in order to help her boss incite Lily's jealousy examines themes of loyalty, deceit, and emotional manipulation. The consequences of such a plot would extend beyond the main protagonists and impact future relationships, commercial transactions, and alliances. This plot would be another exciting episode in the lives of Genoa City's residents in their constantly changing city, where power is the ultimate aim and trust is a scarce resource. The decisions made by the characters will determine whether there is reconciliation, retaliation, or more mayhem. In The Young and the Restless, the drama never really ends.